Hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks for joining us. Whether you're linking from our main Hollywood versus Cleveland episode talking about John Carpenter's The Thing, or just want to hear about some of the differences between the finished 1982 film and screenplay by Bill Lancaster, welcome and let's get to it. The screenplay that I read was the second draft. Bill Lancaster was credited, full credit for screenplay, story by Joseph W. Campbell. And dude, Bill Lancaster is Burt Lancaster's son, the big star from the 50s. Bill Lancaster also wrote Bad News Bears, which I thought was pretty funny. I loved the script. I thought it was an incredibly well-written script. There were only minor differences, but then they got into some bigger differences towards the end. One funny thing I thought, in the script, Childs is growing marijuana plants, you know, and he calls them there's baby. We see him smoking with Palmer. And at one point, when the shit hits the fan, he goes to check on his marijuana plants, and they're all dead because the window had been opened. And he goes, "My babies." And Palmer goes, "Don't touch those. The thing can be anything."
Right.
It can imitate anything, which is a callback to the 1951 version where it was like a plant creature.
This green fluid here, like plant sap.
We'll probably find it has a sugar base.
Please, doctor, I've got to ask
Mr.
this.
Scott?
It sounds like, well, just as though you're describing some form of super Karen.
That's nearly right, Mr. Scott. This carrot, as you call it, has constructed an aircraft capable of flying some millions of miles through space.
The first major difference in the screenplay is after Blair is locked up, they realize a couple dogs have gotten out of the kennel. And McCready, Childs, and Bennings go after the dogs. And I think they're worried about those dogs getting away. So it's kind of like the opening, but pretty early. And as they're chasing the dogs, they're trying to catch up to the dogs. It's getting darker and darker, and they start worrying about freezing to death. They catch up to one dog, it's half eaten. And McCready goes, "I guess that was dinner." They finally catch up to the other dog, and it's just sitting there completely like eerily. They kind of get off their snowmobiles, circle it, and it like goes underneath the ice. Like it kind of transforms, goes underneath the ice. And Bennings is sitting there and gets pulled underneath the ice. And his head is like sitting there, and he's like, you know, screaming in agony as something horrible is happening to him underneath the ice. I think they may have cut that scene just because that would be a really bitch of a scene to do. But in that sequence, I thought it was interesting that it's Childs and McCready, because there's some mistrust and paranoia between them. But they burn Bennings. That's how he gets his in the script. One funny line in the script that I love that Palmer says when they're starting to give morphine to
Clark
and
Gary.
Palmer goes, "Morphine? I was pretty close to those dogs too." You know, like he wants some more. So that's a pretty funny line.
He's kind of a burnout character.
Another change is McCready gives out in the script. McCready gives cyanide pills to Windows, Knowles, Gary. And he says the thing can't imitate what's dead. So they're all carrying around cyanide pills. And when Windows gets his, the thing attacks them. The thing is way more like the thing at the very end. Like this talon rips through the entire wall, grabs Windows. And as he's being pulled away, he bites down on his cyanide caplet. And as he looks at Knowles, his eyes wake up. And then he's gone. So, I mean, that's brutal. Then guess how Knowles gets his? Knowles is crawling. Knowles gets fucked up. Like his legs are broken. It's really pretty brutal, which is tough for such a lovable character. But his legs are broken. He's literally crawling, bleeding. He goes into a bathroom, closes the stall, which is, a fool's errand. Here's the thing coming. He drops his cyanide pill at some point. Behind the toilet, I'm reading this, like, what's he doing? He's breaking off a piece of the wood. He breaks off a sharp piece of wood.
Oh, geez.
It slashes his throat, which is a callback to the Norwegian who did the same thing.
You don't see Knowles die in the
final. So what happens there? I was going to ask about that.
He goes running after the Blair thing, and you just don't see him after that. And it's just assumed that the Blair thing kills him.
So the very ending fight between McCready and the Thing is different in the script. McCready goes and gets into like a loading tractor, like a tractor. And just, he's almost like gone crazy at this point. He's so frostbitten. Bill Lancaster describes it as like war paint. Like his face is getting black. He's kind of gone crazy. He's busting through walls looking for the Thing. He's like singing. He's got his bottle of whiskey. He's like, "You want a drink?" Which ironically is what sort of happens potentially at the end.
Right.
But he's like, "You want a drink?" And he's like, "I'll have a drink." And he's singing, going nuts. And this, with the tractor versus the monster, that reminded me of Aliens, where she gets into the loader and fights the alien. So
Come on.
right, exactly. So there's a, come on, you biatch.
Get
So
away from her, you bitch.
exactly. Newt. That's the only thing I would change from the movie. Is Newt. But that sets up the button with Childs, which is almost word for word, except for two differences, which I love. It doesn't happen outside. It happens in the rec room, but it's basically outside because there's no roof. There's, you know what I mean? It's like everything's exploded. Childs comes up. They have the same interaction. He's like, "Where were you, Childs?" He's like, "I thought I saw Blair." And he goes, "You the only one who made it?" He goes, "Not the only one." But they sit down at a chessboard, which of course is how we introduce McCready in the movie. And McCready asks Childs if he plays chess. And a suspicious Childs eventually replies, "I guess I'll be learning," which is the last line of the screenplay.